Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another of our Webinar Wednesdays hosted by California State University, Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Bearden. I am the director of the local SBDC in downtown Bakersfield that also serves, of course, all of Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. And today we're actually on the road a little bit from our downtown office out in Bishop, California, for episode number 16 of Managing Your Small Business Beyond the Pandemic. Got one of my favorite people on today, Jim Thomsen, and Jim's going to be talking about crowdfunding and some of the crowdfunding work that he has done in the past, and review his interesting project that he did a couple of years back, and try to get a little of excitement going around this crowdfunding angle, which is a totally not utilized source of accessing capital for our small businesses. Today is June 1, 2022. So we're going to get into main part of today is going to be capitalizing your small business, and let's use crowdfunding. So crowdfunding, a viable source. We'll talk about some ways to do it standalone, some ways to leverage it for other debt. We'll be talking, there's so many different crowdfunding platforms, so many opportunities that are out there. Again, I think I mentioned this last week, but in the last 10 years that I've been here, it has been really a program that has grown too slowly, and there have been not enough people that have utilized it. Today, we're going to be talking about the donation or backer type of programs. We're going to kind of jump into Kickstarters, but there's GoFundMes, there's all types of others that are in that donated backer space. There are some where you can actually get into crowdfunding and actually buy or even sell some of the ownership in your small business. We typically call that equity crowdfunding, but there are ways to put your business together to where you can solicit crowdfunding over the internet legally and actually capitalize your business that way. But today we're going to just focus on Kickstarter, on Jim's campaign that he used in Kickstarter, and really try to get more businesses looking at this as a viable alternative to funding a small business. We're going to talk about some of the newer recovery programs very quickly. Also, we're still seeing small business lagging, an update on our pandemic. Our economic focus, our economic corner, as we like to call it, is going to, well, let's see, what are we going to focus on today? Let's jump to that right now. Do a new share real quick and kind of come up here. And there's where we're going to go in a few minutes. But until we get there, let's go over here and look at this Wall Street Journal that came out today, this article that it's data from the Labor Department and from the St. Louis Fed. And what it does is it kind of shows in our economic corner for today, our update on economics, it shows the graphic depiction of both job openings and unemployed. And I think it's a great graph because it's something that we've talked about for a while, but you really kind of see right before the pandemic, you kind of see where they are intersecting, and it's very close. Had a great economy right before, like around February 2020, very low unemployment, not a lot of people that there were actually job openings, but we did have job openings that were supplanting and higher than actually the unemployment, but looking for work. Then, of course, we spiked during the pandemic. But really, it's this relationship lately that we've had where we've had so many job openings. There's so many positions that are available. But really, the key here is with the recent data that was released this morning is that look at the unemployed but are still seeking work are about the same level as before the pandemic. And so it's this gap that is being experienced nationally that is affecting a lot of individuals and a lot of people that are really kind of trying to hire people. We're looking at another summer like we have during the pandemic where there are going to be positions unfilled, which means there are going to be programs that are not fully utilized. And those are going to be utilized by governments and nonprofits and others, potentially recreation areas and others that are not going to be open because there's going to be nobody to fund them. So really, this is kind of continuing where we still have that anomaly where we have so many job openings and unemployment is down at the pretty much the bottom of where it's been even pre-pandemic. So not a lot of relief in sight for that area. So that's a look at our good old economic corner for today. So What also is up today is always your questions. We can have your questions, try to get some answers for you, try to go through some examples of crowdfunding and how it might work. And also, let's do a poll today. Why not? Everybody loves a good poll. So we're going to do a couple of different things. First of all, in kind of the spirit of Economic Corner, what economic condition concerns you the most? I asked this question about a month ago, but we're kind of seeing if it's changing much. Is it inflation? Is it unemployment, the jobs picture that we looked at? Is it recession, or is it supply chain issues? We didn't have supply chain issues on the last question. Supply chain issues is kind of, I believe, a product of a few of these others as far as inflation and a potential other things. And if you do have another, please put it to the chat box and we'll go from there. So first poll question of the day: what economic condition concerns you the most? Is it inflation? Is it unemployment, jobs, hiring, looking for people? Is it recession? Is it supply chain or other? Okay, we do have 52% of you that have participated, that are put in your biggest economic concern. And what we're going to do is we're going to end the poll at this time and share the results with you. We do have 67 got in just at the last minute, 67% of you participating. And inflation remains kind of the number one issue. 61% of you are most concerned about inflation. Supply chain issues, 13%, and 9% of you each are fearing recession and unemployment, and also jobs and hiring concerns that you have. And also we have some that are in the chat box that we'll check out in just a bit. So thank you for poll question number one. Let's go to poll question number two. And poll question number two today is going to be different. And that is going to be on our topic of the day, which is crowdfunding. And so what we're looking for is your experience in crowdfunding. My crowdfunding experience is I have looked into or curated a project. I have backed a crowdfunding project. I have viewed some crowdfunding sites, or I have no experiences to date. And if there's any other things you'd like to add, please go to the chat again. So as I give you time to go through those choices, those crowdfunding choices, we are on the road in Bishop and actually, paying $50 an hour, $50 for late checkout today. Thank you, Creekside Inn, to be here with you today. So if I look like I'm in a hotel room, I am in a hotel room. So again, our poll question, my crowdfunding experience is I've done a project in the past, which would be Jim. I have backed a crowdfunding project, which would be Kelly. I have viewed some internet crowdfunding sites, which I'm going to assume is going to be Maureen. So that covers us. You have no crowdfunding experiences to date, and anything else you want to add to the chat. 65% of you are in. We're going to stop this poll, and we're going to share the results with you. And 71% overwhelmingly have no experiences with crowdfunding. And I think that was consistent when we had Ruth, the crowdfunding queen, the queen of crowdfunding. And it was pretty much the same. About 7 out of 10 had not had an experience in crowdfunding. Slightly blew her away, but it's the way it is. 17% of you have backed a crowdfunding project. Somebody has created a project in the past, has put out one project up to try to gain some funding for it. And others have viewed the crowdfunding sites. So thank you for that poll question. The next one is going to also kind of be related to something different that we talked about. And this was on our Economic Corner. And so on Economic Corner, we were talking about wages and how wages have gone up slightly, and how then that's the direct reflection of there being so many open positions. Is it's creating that tendency, well, this company really doesn't have probably a lot of opening positions. And what we're going to do is just ask you, Google paid their typical worker how much annually last year? 96, 153, 227, or $296,000. The typical, which would be the medium. So throw out the bottom 10%, throw out the top 10, 15%. CEO, millions of dollars in salary. How much is the typical average medium worker at Google? How much do they make? So I will tell you, it's more than you're going to think. So, and we could all be applying tomorrow, but some of us, including myself, probably not too qualified. But just for see what else is going on in the economy and who's paying what and how much, Google. How much do they pay? We have almost 70% of you in, and we're going to end the poll. And actually, we did get 72% of you, and we're going to share the results. And this is where I am developing a pattern of stumping the guest. It is $296,000 is how much Google pays their typical worker. $296,000. I couldn't believe it when I read it. So that's how it ended up on a question for Webinar Wednesday. So thank you for participating. We might have one more question. No, that's it. So that's it for our polls for today. Thank you again. Let's move on. So just a quick update on some of the programs that are going on and some of the things that are happening as far as pandemic relief and other. The California Dream Fund has now a new address. You can actually send it to us now at SBDC, csub.edu. Rather than using the region to onload participants that want to get involved with the California Dream Fund, you can actually send an email to us at sbdc@csub.edu, and we will onboard you through that particular process. Our state small business credit initiative, we've been talking about it. If you might recall, that was initially $10 billion from the U.S. Treasury as part of the last stimulus program, ARPA. And what it was essentially $10 billion that was spread across the country. In California, we received 1.18. That was lowered to about 900 million. This week actually marked the week where 5 states started receiving money. For example, a program in Michigan was small business manufacturing, and also a couple of other programs. But the money is starting to come out, and we're going to be talking about this in the next few weeks as we continue to try to access capital for our small businesses, assisting them to grow. This is going to be some money that is going to be out there to assist businesses that are ready to grow. We've been talking for months about our Kern County Micro Grant Program. It remains open, and we've had a few different iterations from the state, and we are on our 3rd application. So there are some changes that have had to be made in the program, and as it has kind of unfolded. So your patience has been appreciated. It's taken a while to get everything going and out. I believe the first checks were cut recently. So the Kern County Micro Grant Program, the $2,500 for funding for up to businesses that were open in 2019 that actually had gross receipts, that being sales of less than 50,000. So those that actually applied early did not have to supply a 2019 tax return. That has changed and slowed down the process somewhat. Mono County Grant and Forgivable Loan Program is open. You're going to want to contact Jeff Simpson, the Economic Development Director in Mono County for that particular program. We know that the Employee Retention Credit is still open retroactively, and you can actually go back by amending your former payroll tax returns. So those would be your federal 941 forms that you file quarterly with the IRS. They can be amended and actually changed on the way that you can actually then go after that particular grant if you qualify. So if you qualify for the Employee Retention Credit, there's a lot of money out there. That's been a very lucrative program for a lot of our small businesses, and it remains open retroactively through the use of using a amended 941 form. Other programs closed include the City of Bakersfield. California Relief Grant Program through Lindustry closed about 7 or 8 months ago, but they have still been funding. So we're going to be talking about this in the next few weeks, as I mentioned. There's a lot of programs and a lot of things that have been happening, and this really is gaining some support now. We will get in with the State Small Business Credit Initiative in future editions of Webinar Wednesday. Also, we did talk about the California Dream Fund. Again, that's that $5,000 to $10,000 after you actually qualify by growing through and graduating through a prescribed training program, and also by presenting a business plan along with some one-on-one technical assistance consulting. So the Dream Fund, $35 million. We're hoping that that gets increased because we're seeing really good demand for this program and think it's going to continue. So hopefully we'll have more on this and maybe get into more detail about how some of the training cohorts are going now that the training is happening, and some of these are actually onward and going. A lot of the different training topics that we see there that we'll talk about more in greater detail. We did talk about the current micro grant program, probably talked about it as much as we need to for this week. You can contact our office if you want more information at 661-654-2856. So it's going to be time for me. This is an event we had last night in Bishop. Really we participated with the Business Resource Center, which is where essentially we're going to house at one time in the future an SBDC satellite office in the Eastern Sierra region. So last night did have a meetup and part of the meetup series at Coastal Community College, also known as, I found out, Eastern Sierra College Center. So great facilities, great turnout, wonderful participation. You'll see the photo that's in the background has a photo credit for our guest speaker, Jim Thomsen. Jim, for those of you that might have seen Jim when he was on about 13 months ago, he showed us this particular picture, which I think it's a great picture, some cave and some Milky Way, but it's that flashlight that really stands out to me. Boy, that thing, that's a great picture. So anyway, Jim's an amateur photographer, and we're going to bring Jim in now. And Jim, I'm going to introduce you. Jim Thomsen is at 21, started an outdoor guide service that grew into a company called the Wilderness Experience Incorporated, that was one of the largest manufacturers of outdoor equipment, employing hundreds of people at its peak, manufacturing packs, tents, sleeping bags, and apparel. 1980, they went public. Jim sold out. In the mid-'80s, Jim owned 2 retail mountaineering shops and was a partner in an outdoor sales rep business selling packs, bikes, all kinds of fun outdoor stuff. Then he became the senior vice president at JanSport. People remember JanSport. They were the backpack, really the backpack that started the craze of wearing backpacks to school, at least in my era. JanSport, and he jumped at the opportunity to run their parent corporation, VF, newly acquired brand, EastPak in Europe, which is the largest backpack manufacturer in the world. So as CEO, was the beginning, which then actually did a number of consolidations and purchased businesses that we all are familiar with: the North Face, Vans, Timberland, Eagle Creek, Kipling, and a number of others. Toward 2005, Jim retired, and him and his wife, Katie, moved on to a sailboat. That last job he had was in Brussels, and I believe Brussels in Belgium. And they sailed for 10 years, 50 countries, covering, and Jim this is a first with that great 10 years of living on a sailboat, and also a 2-page intro. Moved back to the Sierra Nevadas, the Mammoth Lakes area, where Jim got back to his mountaineering roots. And he saw copies of this Wilderness Experience's most popular backpack. And Jim decided to bring back the clutter sack. And in true entrepreneurial spirit, he went out and required the trademark, and really the ideation process, which is leading into this Kickstarter campaign that we're going to talk about today. But really getting back and going back and reacquiring the trademark. There's so much good old trademarks and intellectual property that is hanging out there. Jim got that trademark. He recreated the piece, sewing the piece with him and his brother, and launched a Kickstarter campaign, and is back in business again, even though Jim didn't start that as a business. It was more as a hobby. The SBDC, we found Jim in 2019. He was a speaker at our Eastern Sierra Capital Summit. And during the pandemic, he worked as an advisor consultant for the SBDC in the Eastern Sierra, advising nearly 100 Eastern Sierra businesses during the pandemic. Millions of dollars in relief, saved tons of businesses over here. Jim majored in mathematics, philosophy at UCLA. Jim, welcome. It's great to have you back, and thank you for joining us today.
Good to see you today.
Yeah, that's right. We saw each other yesterday.
You
So
kept
that's,
me up too late last night.
well, the business clock can run 24 hours if you let it. And we let it run a little longer than we should have last night. So, Jim, it's great to have you here today. And let's talk about your crowdfunding campaign. And actually, we'll do a share and go to that originally. Let me pull this up. And actually, this isn't the one. The one I need is potentially, well, let's look at crowdfunding first of all, since this is Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is one of the many platforms. People are familiar with GoFundMe. There's dozens and dozens of others, and some of them specialize in certain areas. Kickstarter specializes in projects. They are not really for business purposes, but there are a lot of business ideas that are founded and actually kickstarted on Kickstarter. So here's some of their pledge, some of their work that they've done over time. 6.6 billion that has been pledged to projects. Over 221,000 projects have been funded. And I'm thinking this is about a 12 to 15 year period that they've been going. 21 million backers and over 80 million in total pledges. So been around for a while. So what happened yesterday on Kickstarter? So yesterday they had 71 projects that were funded to the tune of about $6.8 million with 30,000 people pledging support. So really kind of an interesting, really shows you some of the numbers behind what is going on out there. So what I did, Jim, was I jumped in and I went to Kickstarter, and I'm familiar with your campaign, so I got a head start. And so let me go back a little bit there. And now I ruined my great creation of having everything set up. So anyway, what I could do is I can just go in here and do the search up here, and I can put in Mammoth Lakes. And Mammoth Lakes, California, it will search by project. It will search by a lot of different ways. So you can do a lot of research if you're looking to do a campaign. Also, you could do it based on what your particular project is. So here's one of them. It sorts by magic. I like to sort by the most funded. And you'll see Jim's project come up here, number 2, the original clutter sack from Wilderness. Let me pull this up, and then Jim, let you start talking about your experience doing a Kickstarter campaign and a little bit about it. So take it away, Jim.
Okay, well, you kind of covered it. It was a company that was really important in my life in the 70s, and we took it public in 1980. And then somewhere around 2016 or 17, we decided to have a reunion party at my brother's house. And we had about 60 old employees come to the reunion party. And one of the things that everybody was mentioning is it's a shame that, in the 70s and 80s, we were sometimes larger than North Face, sometimes smaller, but always we were the competitor to North Face. And then by the 2000s, nobody's even heard of the company anymore unless they're old. And, that was sort of a shame. And so I started going back and looking at what happened to the company after we took it public. And it was bought by a number of big corporations that went through about 12 different owners, and it's into bigger and bigger companies. And then they kept cutting it back and not making products. And then I went and looked at it in 2018, and they had not renewed the trademarks. In 2018, they had not renewed the trademarks in Europe and Asia, and they then did not renew them in the United States. So I thought, I might as well just go ahead and renew the trademarks and get the trademarks. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And we were talking about it. I thought it would be kind of fun. The clutter sack at the time, we sold a lot of those. I mean, I don't remember the numbers, but it was 50,000 a year or more units. And when I started looking around, it's been copied by so many companies, including Topo Designs just recently. And I think they have a great copy of it. And we thought it'd be really fun to make a copy if I could really make a copy. So started researching what I could get. And I found old packs from friends. I put it on Facebook that, everybody had an old pack, and started searching out and was able to find a supplier of the Cordura nylon exactly like what we used in 1974. Found the metal buckles, which are pretty hard to find today. Got leather that matched what we used in the 70s. And and decided that we'd try to make an exact copy that we possibly could. My first goal was to see if we could get somebody to make it in the United States, because I thought that would be the really cool thing, because these were all made in the United States when we ran it. But it was impossible to find any manufacturer, not even because of cost, but just the complicated sewing and quality requirements. It's unfortunate, and we were talking about this last night with Kelly. It's unfortunate that that's been lost in the United States, but both Kelly and I and the group we were sitting with last night think that that's a possibility for the future, that you'll see some of these things coming back and being produced in the United States. Then I had to decide how to sell it and what to do. And as Kelly kind of said, this was not going to be a job. I've been playing and traveling and not wanting to really work a whole lot. So I didn't want to do too much. So I didn't want to go out and try to sell it. And I had a friend that had done a Kickstarter program. So I went and looked at it. I knew nothing about Kickstarter. And it's pretty fun to see the poll today that 71% of you have never been on the Kickstarter programs. And I started reading about it. I thought, this would be really fun to do. And I know nothing about it. So it would be a new subject that I could get into. So early 2019, I started looking at it. I found a manufacturer. I still have lots of contacts because I did work internationally and have spent a lot of time all over. And I knew of a really good small manufacturer in Vietnam that made super high quality packs for companies. Not one of the least, cheapest places, but they made quality that would be good. And they were willing to make 1,000 packs for me, which is harder to, when you want to try to produce stuff in Asia, it's hard to do quantities less than that. And then so I found a supplier of it, and then decided with the Kickstarter one, it'd be really fun to see if we could really get people to sign up in advance. And we did. I put a goal of $20,000 because that would give me enough money to pay for the production run of 1,000 packs. So I thought if I got $20,000, which was our goal, that would be at least good. That way, at least I wouldn't be putting any money into the production part. And when Kelly was mentioning Kickstarter funded programs, what that means is when you do a Kickstarter program, you come up with an amount of money that you want to sell. Mine happened to be $20,000. And if you look at them, they go from small amounts up to large amounts. And so people then can see your project on there. If they want to back it, they can back it. And if you go over your number, and mine was 20,000, then everybody's credit cards are charged and you actually get the funding. If you don't reach your goal, then it just disappears. And even the people who pledged money, their credit cards are not charged. So, you really have to make sure you have a goal that's high enough that it's worth doing. And it allows you to actually produce what you're going to make, and low enough that you can actually hit it. And as you can see on this, we hit almost double what we were asking for on the Kickstarter program. And then we actually made even more on that. And this was something last night when I was talking with Kelly, and I threw out how much money we brought in, and it was way above the number he showed. What we did is, and again, if you haven't looked at Kickstarter, you don't know this, but when you pledge on Kickstarter for a product, and the pledges will work, and I'll talk about this in a second, you get something for it. In this case, people got a backpack. And then if you beat the $20,000 and the project goes through, then Kickstarter sends out a notice to all the people saying your credit card's been charged, and fill out this questionnaire and survey. And that is like on the packs, it was choose the color you want, of the different colors you wanted. You want a leather bottom or not, your shipping address and all of that. But at the time, I found a third-party company that would also handle that for you. And they then encouraged people to buy the other products. And we had T-shirts and a few other things. And we did about another almost $15,000 in the sales from the people who backed the program when they were signing up to have the pack shipped to them. So it's, to me, the crowdfunding thing is amazing. The pledging thing, you got to have pledges, so people will sign up for what you're doing. So depending what you're selling, usually the product is one of the main pledges. You can see on mine, it had T-shirts. If people, I guess you got a sticker for $10. You want something that just low amounts for people who just want to back things for fun. They don't really want anything. But then, for $25, they got a T-shirt. For different money, you got packs and briefcases and little pouches. So there's different pledge amounts. And then when you go on to Kickstarter, if you ever look at something, you will see these pledge amounts, and they'll go from that, $1 or $5 just for people who want to say this is cool, I'll back it, up to some of the ones I've seen, like $5,000, which includes dinner with the founders and something super fun. So it's a whole range of pledges that people do, and they pledge on it. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to ask questions before I just keep rambling on here, or should I keep rambling on?
Proceed to ramble.
Okay.
I'll continue to share your particular screen, and then I'll come back to questions when you're done.
Perfect. Okay. So what I did is I picked the pack, figured out how much we needed to sell that for, and then set pledge amounts, and decided that the backpacks would sell for $125 or $150. But if people did back it on Kickstarter, it would be a lower amount of money for the initial order. If I was turning this into a business, these would have been packs that I would have retailed, and I did know a few retailers selling them, but they would have sold for that 125 or 150. My goal was not to start a company with this, but I think you definitely could, and I think you definitely should. Kickstarter is the only one that I really looked at, and as Kelly mentioned, there's a lot of choices. And I don't know the rules today, but this is, I'm now 2 years out of date on this. You could do on multiple platforms if you want. It's not a requirement that you do only one, as far as I understand. Now, maybe that's changed. But you have to write up what you want to do. You have to be pretty convinced that you can actually make it. So if I got that $20,000, and it has happened with companies in the past, all of a sudden they go, okay, let's go get these things made, and they have no idea how to make them or where to get them made or how much it's going to cost, and then the whole thing just falls apart. And that's one of the disadvantages to being a backer on Kickstarter. And I've done some. I've backed companies and they never could make anything, so you just lose your money, and that happens. And it's not taking enough time to actually realize that you really could do it. I knew exactly what it was going to cost to produce it. I knew the quantity we had to buy. I knew everything in advance. But that is one of the things when you're going to do something, you have to make sure that you can actually succeed if the program, the campaign does succeed. And the other thing with Kickstarter, and a lot of times people, think of Kickstarter like, I don't go look at Kickstarter. You have to do the marketing yourself. You can't count on Kickstarter. They do pick, they have a committee, and they'll pick I forget what they're called, but it's like the coolest projects this week. And if you make it on that, then you're going to get a lot of people that are just on Kickstarter and go look at you. But in general, you have to work out a mailing list. I did Facebook page and other things and built up a really good email mailing list, sent out lots of information ahead of time, lots of stories. Because this was such a big selling pack back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of the really famous climbers would send me pictures, and we got a lot of that. So I tried to do as much as I could to get the name and the fact that we were going to do a Kickstarter program out in advance, and just telling people, this is going to it's a limited edition. If you want to get on the mailing list to be notified before it goes public, get on the list. And I had, I think about 2,000 or maybe more than that names by the time I finished that. And I worked for about 4 or 5 months building up that name. I also sent it to, press releases to every outdoor company, every outdoor magazine, any place where they may publish a little press release if they thought it was fun. And so that did get some people also. Then the other thing with Kickstarter is it's not a requirement that you have a video explaining it, but you really need to have a video. You see their stats, and it's like 90-some% of the ones that are funded have videos. And we had a really fun video on ours with people talking, and we had a lot of, like old famous climbers talking about stuff. But if you look at Kickstarter, they have a really good page where they talk about what's successful. And I went through, after I did this, I got really into looking at Kickstarter, and I looked at a lot of the companies that had succeeded. And then I went and watched their videos, and some were, like, well done. And mine was a friend who does them professionally, so he did it for nothing, but it's real professional. But some of the most successful ones were not professional at all. In fact, almost on the other end, it was definitely, some woman at her home with her phone recording herself, and the fact it was funny and great and sincere pushed her up into one of the top successful ones. So you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money on it. You just have to have an honest story and get people excited about it. And then when it gets launched, you need to promote it a lot. You want to try to get a lot of people to do it right away, because one of the things that Kickstarter does, and I assume the other platforms do too, is they will show the percentage of funded. So mine was like 25 or 30% funded on the first day. But when I look at other ones, some of them are like 1 or 2%. And I think as somebody that's going to pledge and do something, if they only see 1 or 2% of, like all your friends, and that's all you could get, you don't really trust it. But if you see some company come out and they're already at 25 or 30% that first day, it's like, well, okay, there's a whole lot of people that understand this, that really want to do it. So you want to make sure that you have that mailing list and you get the excitement going. Something that I did not do because I wasn't interested in it, but other companies do. Well, I'll jump back one thing. When I was trying to learn how people handled this, I went on a bunch of Kickstarter programs and I bought a lot of things. A lot of, nothing very expensive, but things that were fun. Little backpacks, a travel pack, travel bottles and different things that were fun to do, so to see how they handled it. And the one was a luggage company. I just bought a couple little pouches. But they did a travel pack and raised, I don't remember the numbers now, but in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now, and because of that, because I bought stuff from them, I get their emails each time they do. I think they're on their 5th round of Kickstarter. And now they're asking for a couple of $1 million for like a pretty elaborate travel set. So they've pretty much based their entire company using Kickstarter. And it's really been work for them, because once you've sold some, and if people got their product and it worked great, then that's going to be something that they really like, and they may be the next thing you have coming out. So it's something you can use long-term marketing. The biggest advantage to me on this stuff is it's free. So much, in the past, in the days of where you had to do marketing and you'd have to do advertising and magazines, and everything took so much money up front to start a new company. But here you can do a Kickstarter program and you're going to put a bunch of time into it, but you're not going to spend very much money. And if it doesn't work, you're not out a lot of money. And if it works, you can get the capital you need to start the business you want. So again, talking to Kelly about this, both of us are just amazed that more people aren't doing this with businesses. I mean, it could be, I've seen them for coffee shops. I've seen them for, a lot of different things. And I saw a cheese shop in some place, and they raised a lot of money and basically got their business going just from Kickstarter. So, okay, I maybe sound like an evangelist now on crowdfunding, but pretty excited about it. I wish I knew more about the equity crowdfunding, because I think that would be also a really interesting area. But I think for almost, so many people that want to start new businesses that don't have a lot of money, but have a really great idea, I think it should be top consideration. Okay.
Well, Jim, to all of that, I will just add that that you did a phenomenal job on this. And really, one of the things is you took your time, and even if you didn't have kind of a written crowdfunding plan, you had a plan on the direction that you were going to go. So you were able to actually kind of decide what you were going to do those 30 days. And I think that was so important. And also you put a lot of thought into your pledges. You did a lot of research on successful projects on crowdfunding sites and saw that you have the very small to the very large. If you look at your pledges over here at the right that I'm scrolling through, you see that, they go all the way from $5 to, I believe, $1,000. And you didn't get any takers at your $1,000 because it does list the backers and how many are left. But it at least puts the opportunity out there and it shows that it's there. Mm-hmm. The other thing I think from what I saw was, your most popular, you sold out on some of these. And I think that that's a good strategy to have early bird limited edition. And, we're talking about products here, and having a product. A lot of people will have a service. You mentioned the coffee shop. We've seen food trucks. We've seen art projects. We've seen games, et cetera, that have been crowdfunded successfully. But look at this, for example, your early bird clutter sack leather bottom, 75 backers sold out. And that kind of creates that excitement for it as well.
I forgot about the early bird part because it's been a while now, but that was one of the ideas, to try to get more people to do it in that first couple days so that it would show success. So the price went up after, I don't remember how many days, or once they sold out, and I think it was in just a few days. So that was the reason for the early bird pricing, which was an idea I got from somebody else.
And you're spot on. Having that early excitement is so important, because it builds momentum from people that are watching. People could be on the fence about whether to donate or not. One thing that I've seen also is getting family and friends organized. So you organize your family and friends 30 days before you actually go and actually begin the campaign. And you kind of stagger them. If you have somebody, some family, it's saying, well, gee, I could kick in $1,000. It's a good way of organizing your commitment to your family and friends, but also to stagger it and bring it in early to get that excitement going along with what you used as your early bird special.
Yeah, and actually more than 30 days before. I did some, but I just got a message, an email recently from a friend who is, they're working with somebody who's doing a Kickstarter program to do a documentary on a famous climber. And she sent me this thing going, you should back this, because this is a really neat thing. And it's not even going to happen for another 4 months. But, it's on my list now, and I definitely will be on looking at it. But by sending that out, I'm sure the man that's doing this documentary sent it to everybody he knew and said, I'm going to do this documentary, this famous person. Please write to everybody that is involved in mountaineering and climbing, and get them in advance excited about it. So it is a lot of marketing. Again, it's not a lot of money, but it is a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of time. And it takes really a concentrated and really, really intense effort to pull it off. But it is. And really, one of the things that we see with it that we talk about is we've seen projects where people come in and say, if you wanted to turn this into a business, if you wanted to actually bring this back or bring back other products, and I'm sharing some of your shirts and your other products here on the screen. And I do have to tell you, your briefcase, Jim was nice enough to give me a rust-colored briefcase, and it's quality, number one. Two well thought out pockets that fit my laptop in a case perfectly, and then some papers and materials. And trust me, I put a lot of strain on those zippers, and they're not showing any signs of failure. So really quality stuff. But if you wanted to make this into a business, you could have taken this and leveraged that $37,000, and that would have been like a down payment on a small business loan. Right. Bankers love that. They love seeing you come in with this committed. And you've talked about, you already now have, in your case, you had 310 people who backed the project. You had others that probably would have backed it, but maybe you hit your limit, and you didn't really use any post when you hit the 20,000, any post rewards to try to keep that going too much, did you?
No, not at all. I should have. One thing I did do, but not as well as I should have, is every day after it starts, you can put it up. Kickstarter has a site where you can put comments that goes out to everybody that have even looked at it. So I tried to say, hey, we've got 20% sold, we've got this, we've got different things. But the good companies put out like fun little messages that I would get all the time. So you can really promote it. And on some of the ones that I did back, they did say, like you said, sent out notices that, wow, this has been so successful. We think we want to add these 3 other items for another Kickstarter program. Sign up here and we'll notify you as soon as they come online. And if you really are doing it for a business, I think you could really use this incredible free marketing to get a lot of people.
Yeah, really building excitement for your product, building excitement for the service, your new business that's starting. It is so wonderful. I looked in, since I'm in Bishop today, I looked in Bishop for campaigns earlier today. And sadly, I saw one from somebody I knew, and I very vaguely even remember that campaign happening. We just didn't get enough of that excitement rolling in advance and get enough. For a while, we would have student teams that we tried to work with individuals, and we're wanting to bring that back because you could pair a marketing person and a financial person, a PR, and put them with the entrepreneur and come up with that crowdfunding plan and be out there every single day doing things. Other things that I've seen that have worked is if you have any access to any celebrity at all, or a celebrity that uses a product or even a competing product, you can challenge the celebrity to try your product if it's somewhat similar, or service, or anybody you know who's even what we like to call almost famous works well too in that. But there are so many different options, and really getting that friends and family and getting everybody out front and getting them on the same page, get it rolling, have a plan, execute that plan, get it funded, and then leverage that into, you could have leveraged this if you would have been a normal business owner into, a $250,000 loan and really got things rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without hardly putting in a dime yourself. You put in a heck of a lot of time, and that's valuable,
Mm-hmm.
but not really.
Yeah, no, I think it is a great way to start a business. The other thing I did get was a lot of people writing in and saying, how come you didn't make it in green? How come you didn't you make pockets for it? And all these people that wanted to buy more items. And if it was going to be a business, I would have just said, okay, I'll do those too. But that's the way you should do it as a business.
Yeah, and you get those zealots out there, and they tell people who tell people who tell people, and it just gets going. And it works in if you have a product or a service or anything, it's really an underutilized capital source for small business. It's a lot of work, but it's an underutilized source for those that really want to try to raise some capital.
And today with social media, you can reach a lot of people if you put in the effort into it. And that's actually one of the things that SBDC can really help with, because you have some experts there that understand that. And I didn't know those people at that time. I would, if I was doing it again, I would have contacted somebody and really helped even spread it more.
So, Jim is our crowdfunding expert, having gone through the process every which way imaginable. Recreation, apparel, outdoor, just a phenomenal resource for contacts and everything in those areas, those spaces. We're really super excited and really privileged to have him as a member of our SBDC team. He's one of the individuals you could talk to about crowdfunding if you would like. And we could try to put together a team and schedule and try to do some more things, because we really want to see more of these projects funded for businesses that want to kick off and businesses that want to start and want to even leverage that and to grow it into a better startup. Great. So let's see what we got question wise, Jim. We're running a little bit lower on time. So let me see where I am here and go back to where we were. Okay, so let's jump into, first question is, what are the Kickstarter terms? Great question.
I don't want to just make up numbers, because as like I did last night, I may be wrong. They take a percentage, and I don't remember what it is now. It may be 5%. It's a very small amount, but they do take that after it's funded. Until you get funded, there's no cost at all. And there's certain restrictions on what you can do on Kickstarter, but basically, I can't imagine anything that anybody I would know as a business where it wouldn't qualify.
And I'd try to help you out, and this is the best I can help you out. I believe there is a smaller fee like that, but there's also a fee for processing the payments. And I know they used to, I don't know which source they use now, because we haven't done a campaign in a couple of years, but it seemed to be around 10% for the two combined.
Okay, that may be, yeah.
So
again, that's something you build into the cost. With my products, I did all free shipping everywhere in the United States, and then very cheap shipping for overseas. And that was just built into the cost. So you look at that as an expense like you would have with any other expense, and just make sure you're planning on paying it. And that is something that some of the failures that I heard about from other people, where they did everything right and didn't think about the shipping costs. And all of a sudden, on an item that may only cost $30 or $40, they found out they were going to spend $7 or $8 shipping it. So you definitely have to think through all the different issues.
Okay, well, let's jump into the chat for a second. And let's just kind of get to, there's some additions. Hello, everybody, and thank you for the greetings. And trying to use everything that I could go back for. We have information on the micro loan program, on the Mono County program. A recording of this would be available. So yes, there will be slides. My slides are very, very nominal. Jim doesn't have slides. He's got expertise. He's got slides up in his hard drive in the top of his, above his neck. But yes, the recording would be available. So that's all going to be there. The name of his new, you don't have a new, but you never really did it as a business. You did it more as a project, right, Jim?
Well, I set it up. It's actually Icon Originals LLC. Did that just as a legal. That's
right. Because even though you were having fun, rather than doing a real business, you still have to account and pay taxes on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it gets really complicated, and you have to be a bit. It's really hard to get UPC code signups and numbers for products and all those things. If you're not, you have to be a business. You don't necessarily have to be a LLC or a corporation, but for a lot of the legal things, you need to be a business. Which, if you're going to be, raising 20 or 30 or 40,000, you should actually set it up correctly, because if it works, it's easier to have it running right to start with than it is to go back and do it later.
And let's see, I think you talked about a lot of these, but the best ways to get word out of your campaign to possible donors. I'll just say every source that you can think of.
Right. I only used Facebook just because that was enough work for me. But obviously there's so many other things that you could do on that to add a new one. I mean, TikTok didn't even exist when I did this, or it did, but I didn't know anything about it. So I think there's so much you can do. And again, that's where I would use the expertise of an SBDC person that knows the current social media world and where to use it.
So let's see what else we got. Oh, it's a restaurant. Can a restaurant successfully use Kickstarter? Yes, I believe so.
Yes. Absolutely. You probably even know more than I do, but that's, there's been some really fun ones that I never invested in because a lot of them were more local, where you got, a special dinner for, like 2 people on a special reservation thing as one of your prizes or pledge amounts, a special closed party for a lot of money ones, but also just ones where you got a cup of coffee in the morning and donuts at one place once a month. And, I think there's a lot of cool things, which I don't know enough about that business. You know a lot more about it, but I think you could make a really successful one.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's totally based on your rewards and how creative you are. And really, when you start getting into some of the creative rewards that you can give out, you can even get it, if you are a restaurant and you have a clever name or cute logo or, a cat video on the side, I don't know. You can get into products. You can get into, beanies. You can get into T-shirts and other things that can be shipped anywhere. You can get into specialty type sauces and rubs or whatever, barbecues, whatever. So there's a lot of things that you can do reward-wise that are incredibly helpful for not only doing your campaign, but your business moving forward. So yes, I think definitely breweries too did very well, I think, with Kickstarters.
I wanted to throw one that you just reminded me of something that I saw on a restaurant one, where some of the pledges, he went to other companies and got them to put some of their products on as a pledge. So it was a sauce on the one and had nothing to do with it. He just said, and if you put in $15, you get the sauce. And then what he gained was that company who had huge mailing lists and a big presence. So they then promoted this whole thing too. So looking at places where you can do something to help somebody else and get their support in promoting you is really a great idea, I think.
So got some good specific questions. Wilderness, you had a website. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wildernessexperience.net because .com was not available. It's a religious group that does trips, but wildernessexperience.net is our website that
so you had some
history.
You had a wildernessexperience.backerkit.com hosted pre-order info that showed
That was
availability.
when I said that there was I used a third party for people after they signed up where they could buy additional products. I used BackerKit was the company.
Okay.
So they're
their
unrelated
site.
to Kickstarter. It's a separate company.
Well, wow, it still might be on the web where we can go on.
Probably.
Interesting to know. Jim, do you have any suggestions for finding electronics manufacturers for a couple of ideas?
That's an area that I don't know a lot about, but I'm sure, there's through the connections, that between all the people that at SBDC consultant, I bet we could find manufacturers, and I'm sure there are. It's not one of my areas of expertise.
And Jim, are you a private consultant for Kickstarter?
No, but I am. I work for SBDC, which means you can ask me any questions you want, and it's free. I'm really serious about not wanting to work. I haven't been, had a paying job since 2005. So I'm doing stuff only that's fun. That's why I had so much fun at the meeting last night. There's people doing businesses that I find super exciting. And that, to me, is not as much fun as doing it yourself, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm definitely available to help with any questions.
Well, Jim, you're a giver and you are very valuable in your community, and we thank you for all your work. Oh, here's another one. How long should you keep the Kickstarter page alive?
I had no idea. It is still live, obviously. So I guess it just stays forever. But you do set a length of time for your campaign. And I don't remember exactly what your choices were. You could do it 30, 60, and 90 days, I'm sure. There was a lot of discussion on, I went on different websites. People are talking about shorter is better because then people see a more, better order it right away. Some said it's better longer because you have more time to get more people. So I think I picked 45 days just arbitrarily with no good decision why.
Well, fabulous information. I hope we've got a little bit of word out there. I hope we see some campaigns start coming our way. There's some great ones that we could even share at another time. We're going to be on this more. We're going to stay on this particular topic. We're going to continue to spread the word about that it is out there and there are resources to help you get this going. But as we approach 1 o'clock, and I think my $50 late checkout fee goes up if I stay here too much longer. We're going to end this webinar on time today. So Jim, thank you so much. We'll be back next week for webinar number 117. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.